Have you ever wondered why no matter how much you change your surroundings, that feeling deep inside you stays the same? You move cities, you change jobs, you start new relationships, but somehow, that quiet sense of being trapped never fully leaves. It's like trying to rearrange the furniture inside a prison cell and expecting the walls to disappear. The truth is unsettling. The matrix you fear is not out there. It's not built from towering skyscrapers, endless news cycles, or glowing screens. The real matrix is inside you. It's the voice in your head telling you who you are. It's the silent framework dictating what you believe is possible and what you dismiss without question. It's the invisible code that you didn't write, but live by every single day. From the moment you were born, you were plugged into it. Not with wires, but with ideas, with assumptions, with invisible contracts you never agreed to sign. This is who you are. This is what life is. This is all there is. And before you could even speak, before you could even form a thought of your own, you accepted it. You wore it like skin. You breathed it like air. And the more you tried to fit in, the tighter it wrapped around you. Every rule you followed, every role you played, every lie you believed about yourself became another chain, another lock, another layer of code you didn't even know you were carrying. But here's the part: they never told you. Since the matrix is inside you, the power to escape it is inside you too. You don't need to burn down the world. You don't need to fight endless battles outside yourself. You need to see the program running within and choose for the first time to question it. And once you start questioning, everything changes. Most people spend their entire lives rearranging the scenery inside the matrix without realizing that the real trap is not around them. It's inside them. They change the job, buy the car, move to another country, meet new faces, chase new dreams, but the same invisible walls follow them everywhere they go. Different settings, same prison, different faces, same loneliness. The matrix inside you is not a place. It's a state, a self-sustaining illusion so convincing that you forget it's even an illusion. You defend it, you protect it, you swear it's real because without it, you wouldn't know who you are. It's not just the voice that doubts you. It's the invisible hand that guides what you believe, what you fear, what you chase, and what you give up on before you even try. You were programmed to believe in limitations before you even knew what the word meant. You were taught to question your instincts, to silence your curiosity, to fear your own potential. Every be realistic, every don't dream too big, every stay in your lane wasn't just advice. It was code. Lines and lines of code written into the operating system of your mind. And every time you repeated these messages to yourself, every time you said, "I can't," "I'm not enough," "That's impossible," you weren't just living in the matrix. You were building it, strengthening it, making it real inside you. The scariest part: you don't even need someone else to keep you trapped. You do it yourself. You enforce the rules. You build the walls. You hold the keys. But if you built it, you can tear it down too. The only question is, are you willing to face what's real? Once the illusion starts to crack, the cracks always start small. A lingering feeling that something isn't right. A hesitation before making a decision you've made 100 times before. A sudden moment of clarity where you realize you're not choosing freely. You're following a script. At first it feels uncomfortable, like standing at the edge of a cliff you were never meant to see. Most people turn away. They double down on the story. They distract themselves. They blame circumstances, other people, bad luck. Anything to avoid facing the terrifying possibility that the cage was never locked from the outside. But if you have the courage to stay, to feel the discomfort without running, you start to see it. You start to recognize how deeply the programming runs. How many of your fears are inherited. How many of your dreams aren't really yours. How many of your so-called choices are reactions, not decisions. It's not enough to see the matrix intellectually. Knowing it's there changes nothing. You can spend your whole life understanding the trap without ever stepping outside it. The real shift happens when you catch the program in real time, when you hear the voice telling you you can't, and instead of obeying, you pause, you question, you watch. And in that pause, the code begins to lose its grip. Every time you choose awareness over autopilot, you break a line of the code. Every time you catch a limiting belief before it hardens into action, you weaken the system. Every time you listen to the deeper, quieter part of yourself, the part that isn't afraid, you move closer to freedom. Freedom isn't outside the matrix. Freedom is what happens when the matrix inside you stops running your life. But freedom comes at a cost. It costs certainty. It costs comfort. It costs everything you thought you were. Are you willing to pay that price? True freedom isn't flashy. It doesn't look like a grand escape scene from a movie. It's quieter. It's rawer. It happens in moments that almost no one else can see. Like when you decide not to react to a trigger you've always reacted to. Like when you notice the panic rising and instead of running, you breathe through it. Like when you feel the need to explain yourself and choose not to. At first, it feels like dying. The old self, the programmed self, begins to crumble. The stories you've wrapped around your identity, your worth, your place in the world, they don't hold the same weight anymore. They feel heavy, artificial, foreign. And as they fall away, you're left standing in a space that feels terrifyingly empty. But that emptiness is not a void. It's the space where truth can finally grow. For the first time, you realize that every label you ever wore was too small for what you are. Every box you squeezed into was too narrow for what you carry. You are not the name you were given. You are not the role you were assigned. You are not the story you've been repeating in your head for so long you forgot it was just a story. When you stop feeding the matrix inside you, it stops having power over you. It doesn't vanish overnight. The code will still whisper. The old patterns will still knock. But now you recognize them for what they are. Echoes of a system you no longer serve. And the more you choose to stay present, to meet life as it unfolds, not as your programming tells you it should be, the less control the matrix has over your reality. Your energy returns to you, your attention, your power, your life. You realize you were never trapped by the world. You were trapped by the way you were taught to see it. And now, you're starting to see with new eyes. If this is waking something inside you, subscribe and stay close to the source. The deeper you look, the more you realize. The matrix wasn't just about controlling your actions. It was about controlling your perception. It trained you to value appearance over essence, achievement over fulfillment, approval over truth. It taught you to chase images instead of experiences, titles instead of transformation. And the hardest part? It made all of it feel normal. You were taught to believe that real life is supposed to be hard, heavy, relentless. That struggling endlessly is noble. That constantly doubting yourself is humility. That numbing your inner voice is maturity. But none of that is true. It's not life that's heavy. It's the matrix running inside you that makes it feel that way. Every time you said yes when you meant no. Every time you stayed silent when you wanted to speak. Every time you lowered your light to fit into a smaller space. You weren't living. You were surviving. Playing a role written for you long before you even knew you had a choice. And here's the painful truth. Much of what you call yourself is a collage of borrowed fears, secondhand beliefs, and broken dreams you inherited without question. You didn't fail at life. You were set up to fail by a system that never wanted you awake, whole, or free. But now, you see it. And once you see it, you can't go back. You start to notice how many of your thoughts are echoes, how many of your reactions are scripts, how many of your relationships are based on old, outdated versions of yourself you've long outgrown. Awareness hurts at first. It strips away illusions you once clung to for safety. But it also brings a clarity so sharp, so undeniable, that pretending becomes impossible. And in that clarity, a new power begins to rise, not from effort, but from recognition. Not from fighting, but from seeing. You realize you were never broken. You were just buried. And now, you're starting to dig yourself out. Once you recognize the matrix inside you, the real work begins, not in destroying it, but in withdrawing your belief from it. The matrix doesn't need to be fought. It only exists because you agree to its terms. Every time you believe you are your limitations, your failures, your fears, you plug back into it. Every time you treat your doubts as facts, your pain as identity, your fear as destiny, you reinforce the code. But what happens when you stop agreeing? At first, the system inside you panics. The old thoughts scream louder. The self-doubt tightens its grip. The inner critic you thought was gone returns with new weapons, because the matrix has survived this long by making you believe that without it, you would collapse. That without your labels, your doubts, your fears, you would be nothing. But that's the lie that kept you asleep. You are not the doubts. You are the awareness that sees the doubts. You are not the fear. You are the presence that feels it without becoming it. You are not the programming. You are the silence underneath it, the original self, untouched, undamaged, whole. And when you start living from that place, everything changes. You stop performing. You stop competing. You stop chasing validation like a starving animal begging for scraps. You start listening to your own voice, not the voice you were given. You start moving, not from fear, but from intuition. You start choosing, not because of pressure, but because of truth. Reality, real reality, is not something you find. It's something you remember. It's not something outside you. It's something that has been whispering underneath the noise your entire life. Waiting, watching, patiently calling you home. And now, you're starting to hear it. Real freedom isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks or applause. It comes silently, like a shift in the wind you can feel but not see. It moves through your life subtly at first, in the things you no longer tolerate, in the conversations you no longer fake, in the dreams you no longer postpone. It shows up when you stop waiting for permission, when you stop asking the world if it's okay to be who you are, when you realize that nothing outside you ever had the authority to define you or limit you or tell you what is possible. Freedom means seeing clearly, without the filters, without the programming, without the desperate need to make everything fit inside the old rules. It means realizing you don't have to believe every thought that crosses your mind. You don't have to obey every fear that rises inside your chest. You don't have to become every emotion that floods through your body. You can witness it all. Thoughts, fears, emotions, like clouds passing across the sky. Temporary, movable, not you. And as you witness, you reclaim the most precious thing the Matrix tried to steal, your attention. Because attention is creation. Where your attention goes, your life follows. And when your attention is hijacked by fear, by distraction, by conditioning, you live in a reality that is built for you, not by you. But when you take your attention back, when you anchor it in the present, in the real, in the quiet space inside, you begin to build a different world, not outside first, but inside. A world not built on fear, but on presence, not on lack, but on truth. And slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, reality itself starts to bend around your new state of being. Not because you forced it to, but because reality always mirrors consciousness. Always has. Always will. You're not here to fix the old world. You're here to remember you were never trapped in it to begin with. Freedom is not a destination. It's a practice, a remembering, a daily choice to stand outside the noise, to stand outside the endless simulations of meaning, to return again and again to what's real. At first, it feels unnatural, like walking without crutches after a lifetime of leaning. Every step feels wobbly, uncertain. Every moment of clarity feels fleeting. The old habits whisper seductively, tempting you to come back to sleep, to go back to autopilot, to believe the stories again because they're comfortable, familiar. But if you stay awake, if you stay present, something miraculous begins to unfold. You start to experience life directly, not through the lens of expectation, not through the lens of programming, but raw, vivid, alive. You taste food more deeply. You hear music more fully. You look at the sky and it doesn't feel like a backdrop anymore. It feels alive. Everything becomes more immediate, more intimate. The boundary between you and the world starts to dissolve, because the truth is, there was never a wall separating you from reality. Only a wall of thought, only a wall of conditioning, only a wall made of the very beliefs you were taught to worship. And now that you've seen through it, you realize you don't need to fight it. You don't need to tear it down. You just need to stop pretending it's real. The matrix inside you isn't destroyed by violence or rebellion. It dissolves through seeing, through choosing, through presence, through the quiet, consistent act of returning, again and again, to what is. Not what should be, not what could be. What is. Here. Now, always. This is the doorway out. Not a future event, not a grand escape, but a simple, radical act of seeing clearly and choosing differently. And once you cross that threshold, even if the world looks the same on the outside, inside, everything has changed. You'll walk through the same streets, talk to the same people, live under the same sky, but everything will feel different because you're no longer seeing the world through the old lens. You're seeing it through yourself, unfiltered, unprogrammed, untamed. And the matrix, it won't know what to do with you anymore, because the system wasn't built to contain someone who remembers who they are. It wasn't designed to hold someone who sees clearly. It was only ever built to trap sleepwalkers. The moment you remember your true nature, the moment you reclaim your attention, your presence, your life, you become invisible to the trap, not by hiding, not by shrinking, but by becoming something the illusion cannot touch. Aware. You stop looking for exits. You realize the door was never locked. You stop waiting for permission. You realize no one can give it to you. You stop asking if you're ready. You realize you always were. Because the matrix was never outside you. It was never a prison made of walls. It was a prison made of belief. And now that belief has cracked. Now that you've seen through the veil, the only real question left is this. If you could rebuild reality from the ground up, starting inside yourself, what would you create? Tell me below. Not from fear, not from habit, from the place that's finally free.